For as long as humans have looked up at the night sky, we've dreamed of venturing beyond our planet and exploring the cosmos. And now, with NASA's Artemis program, that dream is closer than ever to becoming a reality. Artemis is NASA's plan to return humans to the moon and eventually send them to Mars. It's a program that's pushing the boundaries of space technology and redefining what's possible for human spaceflight. But what exactly is Artemis, and how is it going to take us back to the moon and beyond? The story of Artemis began in 2017, when President Trump signed Space Policy Directive 1, giving NASA the green light to refocus its efforts on lunar exploration. Building upon the legacy of the Apollo missions and the more recent Constellation program, Artemis seeks to take human spaceflight to the next level. At the heart of Artemis are two key components: the powerful Space Launch System, SLS, rocket, and the versatile Orion spacecraft. Together, they will ferry astronauts, supplies, and scientific instruments to lunar orbit and beyond. The Artemis program is structured as a series of missions, each building on the successes of the last and introducing new capabilities that will be crucial for sustained lunar exploration and the eventual journey to Mars. Let's take a closer look at each of these groundbreaking missions.
Our return to the moon will be different than the last time. We plan to explore more of the lunar surface and learn how to live and work there.
The Space Launch System is now counting down to liftoff of Orion on its maiden voyage to the moon. And here we go. 3, 2, 1. Boosters in ignition. And liftoff of Artemis 1. We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
Artemis 1 was the maiden voyage of the Space Launch System, SLS rocket, and the Orion spacecraft, launched on November 16, 2022. This uncrewed mission was a critical test of the new hardware that will be the backbone of the Artemis program. During its 25-day mission, Orion ventured further into space than any spacecraft built for humans has ever gone, reaching a distance of 280,000 miles from Earth, about 40,000 miles beyond the Moon. While no humans were on board for Artemis 1, the spacecraft wasn't empty. It carried a suite of mannequins equipped with sensors to measure radiation levels and test new spacesuit designs. The mission culminated with a splashdown in the Pacific Ocean, where the Orion capsule was recovered by NASA's landing and recovery teams. The success of Artemis 1 was a major milestone for the program, proving that the Space Launch System and Orion are ready to carry humans back to the moon. Building on the success of Artemis I, Artemis 2 will be the first crewed flight of the SLS rocket and Orion spacecraft. Scheduled for 2025, this mission will send 4 astronauts on a lunar flyby, marking the farthest humans have traveled into space since the Apollo missions. The crew for Artemis 2 was announced in April 2023 and includes 3 NASA astronauts: Commander Reed Wiseman, pilot Victor Glover, and mission specialist Christina Koch, as well as Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen, serving as the second mission specialist. This diverse crew represents a new generation of space explorers, with Glover set to become the first black person to fly to the moon, Koch the first woman, and Hansen the first non-American. During the approximately 10-day mission, the crew will test out the life support systems of the Orion spacecraft and conduct a series of scientific experiments. They will also assess their own performance in the deep space environment, gathering data that will be crucial for future long-duration missions. The highlight of the mission will be the lunar flyby, where Orion will come within just 4,800 miles of the Moon's surface. This will provide stunning views of the lunar terrain and give the crew a taste of what's to come in future missions. After completing its lunar flyby, Orion will use the Moon's gravity to slingshot itself back towards Earth, reaching speeds of around 25,000 miles per hour. The spacecraft will then perform a precision splashdown in the Pacific Ocean, where the crew will be recovered by waiting support teams. The success of Artemis II will be a major step forward for the program, demonstrating that the Space Launch System and Orion are capable of safely transporting humans to the Moon and back. It will set the stage for the next mission, Artemis III, which will see astronauts return to the lunar surface for the first time in over 50 years. Currently scheduled for 2026, this mission will land the first woman and the next man on the Moon, marking the return of humans to the lunar surface for the first time since Apollo 17 in 1972. The mission will begin with the launch of 4 astronauts aboard an SLS rocket. They will travel to lunar orbit in the Orion spacecraft, where they will rendezvous with SpaceX's Starship Human Landing System, HLS, which will have been pre-positioned in lunar orbit by a separate launch. 2 of the astronauts will then transfer to the HLS, which will descend to the lunar surface, targeting a landing site near the Moon's south pole. This region is of particular interest to scientists because it contains permanently shadowed craters that may harbor water ice, a critical resource for sustaining a long-term human presence on the Moon. Once on the surface, the astronauts will conduct a series of spacewalks or extravehicular activities, EVAs, to set up experiments, collect samples, and test new technologies. These could include demonstrations of in-situ resource utilization, ISRU, which involves extracting oxygen and water from the lunar regolith to support life and produce rocket fuel. After approximately a week on the surface, the astronauts will reboard the HLS, which will launch them back into lunar orbit to rejoin their colleagues in the Orion spacecraft. The 4-person crew will then set course for Earth, splashing down in the Pacific Ocean at the end of their historic mission. The significance of Artemis III cannot be overstated. Not only will it mark the return of humans to the Moon, but it will also showcase a new model of space exploration, one that involves close collaboration between NASA and commercial partners like SpaceX. The mission will lay the groundwork for a sustainable lunar presence and demonstrate the capabilities needed for the ultimate goal of sending humans to Mars. Following the success of Artemis III, the program will move into a new phase focused on establishing a more robust and sustainable presence on and around the Moon. Central to this effort will be the Lunar Gateway, a small space station in orbit around the Moon that will serve as a staging point for missions to the surface and eventually to Mars. Artemis IV, scheduled for 2028, will be the first mission to dock with the Gateway. The crew will deliver the iHab, a pressurized living module, expanding the station's capacity for hosting astronauts. They will also conduct a series of spacewalks to assemble and test the Gateway's systems. Subsequent missions, Artemis V and VI, will each send 4 astronauts to the Gateway. From there, they will descend to the surface in reusable landers for extended stays of up to 2 months. These missions will focus on conducting more complex scientific experiments, testing new technologies, and demonstrating the ability to extract and utilize lunar resources. Starting in 2031, NASA plans to launch Artemis missions on an annual basis. These missions will continue to expand the Gateway and the capabilities on the lunar surface, including the establishment of a permanent base camp at the South Pole. Astronauts will conduct longer and more ambitious surface missions, testing habitats, rovers, power systems, and other technologies that could be used on Mars. Throughout this phase, NASA will also work with its international and commercial partners to develop a robust lunar economy. And there you have it, a deep dive into NASA's Artemis program and the exciting future of human spaceflight. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more updates and in-depth coverage of the Artemis missions. Hit the bell icon to get notified whenever we post new content. And lastly, leave a comment below and let us know what you think about the Artemis program. What excites you most about the prospect of returning to the Moon and going to Mars? What questions do you still have about the missions and technologies involved?